You know, the temperatures were very cold. But earlier that day, we had had a thunderstorm. Now, it's pretty rare for February to have thunderstorms, but there was a lot of rumbling, lightning, and my next door neighbor had little ones that were home. She was feeding them lunch, and about 1:15, she heard a very loud crack of thunder. Everyone in our cul-de-sac had something damaged. Ours was just a little more severe. Either it blew out their garage door opener, it broke a microwave, it took off the circuit breaker in a garage door opener. A pinhole leak, gas leak was across the street, and the same problem that caused our fire. So this is a picture of my daughter's ceiling fan, and it is actually made, it was made of like clear plastic acrylic, and the heat of it just melted it. And the black soot on there is because the whole house was covered with this black soot. This is a picture of our kitchen counter. This was a small television, and you can see the heat of it. The counter is actually a tan, a very light colored thing, but that black soot, and on the island here, it's just everywhere. And it smells, I'll never forget that smell. In fact, when I hear of fires or I go near a house that's been, you know, that's had a fire, that smell is very rancid, it's very heavy. That black soot covered everything, and so they deemed the house totally, you know, destroyed, although our structure didn't fall down. We were actually very lucky. Number one, my daughter was a junior in high school. She and I were both at school that day that had happened. By the time I got the phone call a little after 4, it had been burning inside and smoldering, and that's why you'll see some other damage. This is what it looked like down there from the kitchen. This area here was the biggest. This goes right down into the basement. It's at the top of the basement steps. This is the island. You just saw the kitchen, the side of the fridge. So there was this huge hole, big enough that the kitchen table almost fell through. When the firemen got there, they had to slide it to the side. And you couldn't get into the garage, which would be like where this picture was taken from eventually. But you couldn't get into the garage door because it was up here perpendicular to the basement door. So they couldn't get down, they couldn't get into the garage, but they deemed it was not damaged. This was the basement, a couch, and over here you'll see those marks in the walls, these little strips. Those are the places where the studs are, and because they put nails in the studs to support that, they heat up, and you'll see that in other pictures. Once again, the ceiling is falling down. I don't know if you can pick up on that. There it is. So the ceiling is coming down from the above because they've had to hose this with the fire when the fire trucks got there. This is another picture of the basement. My daughter felt kind of bad. She was a junior, and I had finally gotten her a large TV to play her video games on. We bought that TV January 19th. So February 26th, we lost it, and she was like, "Oh, Mom, we finally get a big TV." But we got it replaced because I was very fortunate that I had very good insurance, and they were able to rebuild the inside of the house. I didn't bring those kind of pictures. This is a picture of the microwave above the stove. It's melting the extreme heat from the fire. And once again, the countertop is just covered with black soot. And that soot is everywhere, and it gets on your hands and your clothes. This is the basement walkout door. This is where the firemen had to enter. The fire actually, at 1:15 when we got struck by lightning, it blew the little tin vent at the top of our house clear over 2 neighbors over into their yard. So it blew that off. The lightning came down, and somehow we had a pinhole leak in our CSST, and that stands for corrugated stainless steel tubing. And after 1990, homes that were built, they often used this corrugated stainless steel tubing because it was flexible, and they found it quicker to work with and easier to move. And that had a pinhole crack, a very tiny pinhole, And the gas coming through there, with the lightning coming down, it's ignited a fire underneath the basement steps. And that fire, I happened to have put the box from that big TV, I stored it under my basement steps. And I also had a 4-drawer metal file cabinet in that same area for storage of files. So here's a 4-foot metal file, and here's a large cardboard box, and here's this pinhole leak, and the lightning strikes. The chief of the fire department told me you had the perfect opportunity for a fire because of that metal and the wood, or the cardboard box. So anyway, it started a large fire underneath the steps. It burned a hole up into the kitchen floor. When the firemen came, they had to, of course, water everything down. So this was after the fire. That night we went inside, and you know, it's full of water and all the ceiling tile stuff. The chief of police in Ankeny had said that if the CSST pipe, corrugated stainless steel tubing, had been grounded, it possibly could have prevented this fire. So the following month, actually the fire was February 26th, and in the April mailing of my Mid-American Energy bill, they sent out to all customers a warning about CSST piping. Corrugated stainless steel tubing is a continuous, flexible stainless steel pipe and typically is covered with a yellow exterior plastic coating. Mine did not have that coating. CSST is used to supply gas in residential, commercial, and industrial structures. It's usually routed beneath, through, and alongside the floor joists in your basement, inside interior wall cavities, and on top of ceiling joists in the attic spaces. All CSST must be bonded and grounded according to installation instructions by a qualified person. If CSST is not properly grounded, current from a lightning strike could travel through the structure's natural gas piping system and cause a leak, or in some cases, a fire. And that's exactly what had happened. And it warns them that if your home, if it's been installed in your home and it was built after 1990, and our home was built in 2003, so if your home was built after that, you should check it. When we had the house, we had to live in Johnston for 6 months while they rebuilt the house, and we had construction people who are known for taking care of repairs after a fire. That's their business. And I had 2 of them come through the house and give me an estimate. Their estimates were identical. I asked these 10 questions of each of them, and the last question on my list was, are you going to put in CSST piping, or are you going to use black pipe? In the olden days, they used black pipe, or before the CSST. Of the 2 builders, one was going to use CSST piping because they were replacing my house, and that's what I had had. The other company said, no, we're going to put in black pipe. So which company would you go with if you had a choice? The one that's going to put back exactly the way your house was, CSST, or would you go with the black pipe? How many would go with the CSST? How many would go with the black pipe? Yeah, that was an easy do. I said, I'm going to go with the black pipe because I've already seen what happens when you have CSST pipe. So I'm going to go with the black pipe. So that's what I did. If any of you have homes that were built after 1990, and I'll imagine a lot of you do, you should double check that your CSST pipe, the flexible corrugated stainless steel tubing, is properly grounded. And I know I talked to Mrs. Henny when I got here today. I said, you know, I'm not sure what that means, but something has to attach and go to the ground in order for it to maybe not catch fire or cause, you know, damage. Are there any questions? I had lots and lots of pictures.